The Mirror Law: How the World Reflects Who We Are Today. I want to talk about the mirror law. What does it really mean when we say, the world is a mirror? The idea is simple. Every person, every situation, every event is a reflection of how I think and how I feel. My thoughts create the structure of my life, how things should be, how they could be, what I want. My feelings fill this structure with energy. Whatever I'm filled with inside, that's what I end up living. The key is to notice your feelings and inner sensations. Most of the time we start with descriptions. Who said what? Who acted how? Why they did that? But all of that is always about other people. The mirror law only works when I look at myself. So the first question in any situation is not, why did they do that? But, how do I feel right now? Imagine, someone calls you, the conversation starts off fine, and then they suddenly say something unpleasant. Your body tenses, or they were engaged and attentive, and then something distracts them. The energy of the conversation shifts, and you tense up again. That reaction is your reflection. The situation triggered your feelings, and you responded with an emotion. The important thing is not to run away into analysis. Why did he say that? What happened to him? What did he mean? The moment we dive into analyzing the other person, we step out of the mirror law. The right move is to pause and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Why did I tense up, get angry, or hurt? Just like with a real mirror, you don't stand there studying the frame, the glass thickness, or the screws. You look at your own reflection. Wow. What's going on with my hair? Okay, this is how I look today. The world works the same way. If the world is a mirror, wherever I look, I can only see my own reflection. What is coming out of me? What I'm radiating? And what I radiate is always my own emotions and inner states. So let's fix this in mind. The mirror law is when I look first and foremost at my own feelings and how they change in the moment of what's happening. To make it easier to understand, let me share a few client stories. Story 1. A mother, a daughter, and the weight of guilt. Olivia moved in with her adult daughter and son-in-law. Life circumstances pushed her to do that. There are dogs, cats, her own business, and depression. Her kids help her, but then come the complaints and exhaustion. It's hard. We spent our whole day on this. We're so tired. And Olivia constantly feels guilty and like a guest in their home. What is the mirror showing here? The first blind spot. With what inner feeling did I move in with my children? With, sorry, I'll just sit here quietly. We'll somehow get through this. With awkwardness, discomfort, the thought, we just have to survive this year? If I already feel uncomfortable and out of place inside, the world will show it to me through people, through their irritation, fatigue, or subtle reproaches. Everything the children say is simply reflecting her own inner awkwardness and discomfort. The second blind spot is guilt. Guilt shows up when I decide that I'm responsible for other people's emotions. It's my fault they feel bad. I'm in their way. I'm causing problems. But what actually destroys her is not what her kids say. It's her own inner script. I must never bother anyone. I must not be a burden. She lives with the belief that she must always be convenient, always fine, always grateful and positive, so that others don't worry. That's a heavy load to carry. It easily leads to burnout and depression. What is this situation with her children really showing? Not what ungrateful kids, but that it's time to turn back toward herself and honestly ask, how do I want to live from now on? What is weighing me down? Where am I living from guilt instead of self-respect and self-love? Where is my responsibility for my own feelings, not for everyone else's? When I take responsibility for myself back into my own hands, guilt slowly starts to dissolve. Story 2. A successful woman and an irresponsible man, Julia, is proactive, organized, in control of everything. The man next to her feels more like a little boy. He avoids responsibility, makes excuses, and she gets angry and feels like a strict mother. What is he reflecting back to her? Not that he's lazy or he doesn't care. He's showing her something much glubsha. I'm not clear about what kind of relationship I want and who I want to be in that relationship. Julia describes herself through qualities: organized, controlling, successful in business. But all of that is about her role, not about her feelings in a couple. Her irritation is Passuti, resentment toward her own choice. I agreed to a relationship where I have to pull, control, teach, and constantly adjust another person. This man is mirroring her ego, the desire to shape someone into her idea of a responsible, strong, perfect partner. That's not love. It's not about love. It's about control and a sense of superiority, about how she is constantly competing with a man inside herself, proving, I'm stronger, I'm more right, I know better how things should be. The main question here is not, why is he like that? But, what am I doing next to someone with whom I feel this bad and this heavy? The mirror law here shows I'm not really clear on how I want to feel in a relationship. I'm trying to fill my own emotional emptiness by trying to fix and change another person. Instead of being honest with myself, I slip into the role of boss and rescuer. Story 3. A relationship with a married man that is in a relationship with a man who is already married. She wants to end it, but every time she tries to leave, she comes back. It feels easy with him, warm, close. There is chemistry and a sense of harmony. What does the mirror show her here? First of all, honesty. Harmonious relationships with someone who is married are an illusion. It's not about he's a bad person, and not about his wife or his family. This situation shows that deep inside Lydia hasn't clearly defined her own boundaries and life principles, doesn't fully understand what she truly deserves in a relationship, agrees to the role of convenient option. The fear of breaking up is really the fear of meeting her own feelings, loneliness, feeling unwanted, emptiness. That's why she holds on to a format that gives her some warmth from time to time, even if that warmth exists on top of a constant inner betrayal of herself. The world here mirrors not his cheating, but her own lack of honesty with herself and her emotional dependency on this relationship. Story 4. A new job. The same old story. Helen changed jobs. Some time passed, and her new boss started behaving just like the previous one. jealousy, belittling, pushing her into the background. What is the mirror showing here? If the same scenario repeats over and over again, it means I haven't changed the key thing inside myself. Most likely, at her previous job, Helen felt, no one really sees me. No one truly values me. I have to prove that I'm needed, and at the new job she continues to live with the same inner belief. In reality, she hasn't come to a new place. She's walked into the same script with different decorations. The world is showing her. It's time to stop chasing validation from bosses and instead look at how she devalues herself and why she keeps agreeing to the role of the convenient second plan. Story 5. A husband with an alcohol addiction. Natalie lives with a husband who has an alcohol addiction. He denies it. Conversations don't work, and she keeps thinking about divorce, but constantly postpones the decision. What does a person with an addiction reflect? He shows that he cannot handle his own feelings, cannot bear his current reality, doesn't know how to speak about his pain, and chooses alcohol to stop feeling. But from the perspective of the mirror law, the key questions are not about him, but about her. What do I feel living next to this person? Why am I still staying? What am I really afraid of losing besides my illusions? Most often inside there is fear of being alone, hope that one day he will change, belief that without me he will fall apart, and a deep habit of taking responsibility for someone else's life. At some point, it becomes important to honestly say to yourself, I don't want to live with someone in active addiction. And instead of endlessly trying to wake him up, to finally take responsibility back for your own life. Story 6. A teenager in video games, Laura shares that her teenage son is constantly at the computer. He only goes for a walk if she really pressures him. At home, fights break out whenever she tries to limit his screen time. She snaps, yells, and feels completely exhausted by this cycle. What is the child reflecting? He is showing that his mother is not passing on real-life skills, but is mainly trying to control and raise him. Kids are not waiting for us to give them instructions on how to live the right way. What they truly need is practical life skills. An example of how an adult enjoys life, how they take care of their body and nervous system, how they balance I want and I need to. The son chooses games because there he feels freedom, interest, success. In real life, he mostly meets messages like, you have to, do this, turn it off. The world is showing Laura. I mostly live from I must, rather than I truly want. I don't fully understand what really brings joy and interest to me. I try to control my child instead of genuinely being curious about his world and showing him my own. Story 7. Pregnancy, weakness, and constant demands. Mary notices that criticism and demands from her family get especially intense when she is pregnant, sick, or simply in a weaker state. She doesn't shout back, tries to be good, but feels like in those exact moments her relatives push and pressure her even more. What does this situation reflect? She is used to sacrificing herself and being convenient. She does a lot for others and secretly hopes, when I feel bad, they'll finally take care of me. But when she really becomes weak, instead of support, she gets complaints and pressure, and that hurts deeply. Why is this happening? She lives with the belief that her loved ones depend on her and can't handle life without her. She herself has built a system where she has to carry everyone. People around her simply got used to relying on her and expecting things from her. The world is not punishing her. It is showing her it's time to stop living as an irreplaceable resource and to acknowledge her right to be weak, to ask for help, and to stop apologizing for her own boundaries. Story 8. A sister who smokes Jenna describes riding in a car with her sister. The sister is driving and smoking with the window slightly open. The air in the car is heavy and it smells bad. Jenna stays silent, but inside she thinks, she doesn't respect us. I'm never riding with her again. What is the mirror showing? The sister is broadcasting, I do what I want. Yes, it may be rude or inconsiderate, but that's still her choice. And what does Jenna do? She doesn't do what she really wants. She doesn't speak up. She doesn't ask to stop and get out. She doesn't clearly state her boundaries. She chooses to stay silent, collect resentment, and explain everything through disrespect. The mirror is showing. I'm afraid to openly state my needs. I judge others for doing things I don't allow myself to do. It's easier to say she doesn't respect me than to admit, right now, I don't know how to take care of myself in this situation. Story 9. A mother's comments at the table. Another situation. A mother makes comments to her daughter right at the table in front of guests. Laugh quieter. Don't eat so much, there won't be enough for others. At the same time, she says nothing to the daughter's brother, even when he jokes loudly and not very appropriately. What does the mirror reflect here? This is not about an unfair mother. It's about the daughter's difficulty in being herself around her mom. She wants to be a good girl, convenient, the perfect daughter that makes her mother proud. And the stronger this desire, the more the world will correct her through remarks, criticism, and evaluation. The brother most likely just acts naturally. He doesn't try to adjust himself to please anyone, so the mother reacts to him differently. Simply put, there is nothing to polish in him. He is stable in himself. How to work with the mirror law. Let's put everything into a clear system. 1. The world is a mirror, not a surveillance camera. It's not watching, judging, or punishing us. It simply reflects what already exists inside, our feelings, beliefs, fears, and expectations. 2. Look not at what is happening, but at what I am feeling. In any situation, you can ask yourself 2 simple questions. What am I feeling right now? What thought is feeding this feeling? And only then, what do I want to do with this? 3. Stop putting other people under a microscope. Judging, fixing, saving, and re-educating others is always a way to avoid facing yourself. The more I'm absorbed in someone else's life, the further I move away from my own reflection. 4. Practice emotional honesty. It can be very painful to admit. I live with someone who has an addiction. I'm agreeing to be the other woman. I treat my partner like a child. Oh, I'm afraid of my mother and want her approval. I don't know how to protect my boundaries. But this is exactly the point where real adulthood and freedom begin. 5. The skill of inner observation is the foundation of a happy life. When I learn to observe not other people's behavior but my own feelings and reactions, I become emotionally mature. An emotionally mature person doesn't need to cling to others, doesn't smash their ego against everyone around, and knows how to stay themselves while being in connection with other people. In the end, the mirror law is always about one thing. I always meet only myself. Through people, through situations, through events. And the more honestly I look at my own reflection, the easier life becomes. If you recognize yourself in these stories and want to go deeper into your own situations, feel free to share in the comments. In the next video, I'll talk about another universal principle, how the outer world always adjusts to our inner state. Subscribe to the channel. I promise it's going to be very, very interesting.